We have a list of the 10 colleges receiving the most federal virus money. Not surprisingly, 3 are in California, the state of Nancy Pelosi, who is ensuring that colleges get paid while small business owners get screwed. Maybe Ben & Jerry needs to make a new flavor, Fancy Nancy, full of fruits and nuts, but no cream for you. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the program, The Dr. Duke Show, the only place that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today, we're discussing higher ed, and while most colleges are bleeding money during the COVID-19 shutdown, some are actually going to raise tuition costs for fall. Plus, we dive into some real education with a passage from William Shakespeare's instant classic, The Tempest. But we start with the coronavirus relief package and the top 10 colleges that receive the most money. Yeah, it's kind of an odd list, right, when you think about the money being dished out. The articles don't say why these universities were picked this way, but 3 of them are from California, and 3 of them are Big Ten schools, right? Any other interesting points about this?
Well, all of this is coming from, just so everyone knows, the CARES Act, the $2 trillion CARES Act that Congress passed. President Trump signed it, and about $14.2 billion is going to both private and public colleges and universities across the whole United States. So when you take a look at the list, again, I was as shocked just as you were. Number 1 is Arizona State University. They're getting $63.5 million out of that entire relief package.
That's unbelievable.
In Pennsylvania State, Penn State, $54.9 million, followed by Rutgers is getting $54.1. But then you kind of mentioned, obviously, California.
Well, you've got the University of Central Florida, Miami-Dade College getting $49 million, Georgia State University. I mean, there are a lot of big schools here that aren't getting a lot of money. And in the big, you think of the big schools in the Big Ten, you think of Ohio State and Michigan. Ohio State comes in at number 8 at $42.8 million. No Michigan, no University of Wisconsin. It's the 3 California schools are California State Northridge, California State Long Beach, and California State Fullerton, not USC. Oh, that's a private school, not UCLA, right? It's kind of an interesting, or UC Berkeley. Mm-hmm. It's a bizarre list. Again, we don't really have a lot of information on how this works, but you'd love to think it. Betsy DeVos gave us this little bit of explanation, at least. She says, in a letter dated to the presidents of these universities, April 9th, Secretary of Education DeVos wrote that, quote, the most significant portion of that funding allocation provides that $12.56 billion will be distributed to institutions using a formula based on student enrollment, adding that at least 50% of the money to each institution, quote, must be reserved to provide students with emergency financial aid, grants to help cover expenses related to the disruption of campus operations due to the virus.
It's quite interesting how when it becomes like we have this pandemic going on, and then we have certain stipulations about how this money is actually to be spent. If we could actually take a look at these universities year-round all the time as to seeing how they are actually awarded these federal funds that come from the taxpayers and having actual stipulations on what they can use with the money, it might be something.
Well, and why are you actually handing universities money and then forcing I mean, look, I'd rather go to the kids than the school, but why are you handing the universities all this money and then mandating that they give half of it away to students? I mean, aren't students getting money from other places? I mean, why are you singling out certain kids at certain schools for relief based on this so-called formula that they've come up with?
We don't know, but all we do know is more money.
More debt, more debt, more debt.
Well, we do know that there are a lot of colleges who are claiming that they are actually bleeding money because of the coronavirus. I mean, a lot of them have shut down operations in terms of on campus, and there are apparently maybe some who eventually will close altogether. So Campus Reform looked at some colleges and how COVID would impact them. All of them are basically going to be losing millions of dollars. They cited UW-Madison, who's expected to lose about $100 million by June because of this, and that's about only 3%. If you think about $100 million is only 3% of their $3 billion budget. These are just like fake numbers to me. They mean nothing really to me. The University of Minnesota, our neighbor there, is having $315 million being lost of their $3.8 billion budget. In Berkeley, good old Berkeley out there in Cali, also will be losing about $100 million. But they also talked about how there are some universities, not all of them, who are giving refunds back to the students because there are most college kids have gone home. So they've already paid their tuition, they've already paid room and board, but they're not actually enjoying any of that room and board. So what do you do with that money? So some of them are giving back partial refunds, like University of Nebraska-Lincoln, they're giving 60%, a prorated cost of room and board if they left campus.
Well, it makes sense to give room and board back. I doubt any of these schools are giving back tuition because they're continuing the education online. But it does defy description to think that a place like Arizona State is getting $63 million, and you have other colleges that are on the verge of going bankrupt. And the reality is that we've said for a long time that sooner or later the education bubble was coming, and it was going to start in the universities. I think you're beginning. Coronavirus is really pushing a lot of things over the cliff here. And quite frankly, there are colleges that we don't need. We have too many. There are too many colleges in this country. Colleges have been growing and expanding, and more colleges have been hitting the scene, largely under the progressive idea that every kid needs a college education. And quite frankly, given what we've done to public school education, we've lowered an actual high school education. What kids know when they graduate from high school isn't college worthy. And so college, I think, for a lot of these progressive educrats, will be what will take the niche that high school used to take, right? They're going to get a radically inferior, highly political, highly sociological education through high school. Then they go to college, which the progressives all want to mandate more or less. They want the government to pay for it. They don't want there to be any student loans. They want it to be heavily subsidized so that every child can go, whether they can read and write or not. We've done a lot of stories about that. College is going to be the new high school if they get their way. And that's why all these colleges are out there. And so we know that bubble is unsustainable. You're not going to send every kid in this country to college, primarily because there are many kids who do not want and cannot succeed at college. So this idea that we're going to force all these kids, the virus apparently is going to kill off some of the low-hanging fruit. Some of the slower college gazelles are going to get gobbled up by the market, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
And that's something I think for everyone to kind of pay attention to. And we talk about K-12 obviously all the time because we all go K-12, but not everyone does go college, or at least the older generations, not everyone has. So I think it's important for them, though, to look at these generations coming in and how this really could, like you said, the bubble, and how it could really change moving forward what actually a college education looks like. But we need to be readily aware that the progressives, like you said, if they get their way, they will make it free, meaning taxpayers pay for it. And you can see they have been, but they are even more so because of COVID pushing for that. So everyone, even if you don't go to college or if you've never gone to college, needs to pay attention because this is coming.
The educrats who want universal college education for free recognize that is a great idea, great plan if what you want is social programming of people. Mm-hmm. If what you want is education, it's a lousy plan, right? And so the big progressive educrats, they see mandatory pre-K, get the kids in at 3, let them not be free of government-controlled education till they're 23, 24, right? Mm-hmm. When they graduate college. And once they pay for undergraduate, they will pay for graduate school.
Oh, yeah.
So more or less, by the time they're 3 to the time they're 27, right, fits perfectly Obama's template that 27 is the age that childhood ends, right? They will be, because some kids, if they get a really indoctrinating public school education, they can shake it off in college. Other kids get a unremarkable public school education, but then they get really indoctrinated in college, right? Mm-hmm. This way you'd have all those kids all the time. And I'll say this country would be better off with no college-educated graduates than all college-educated. Let me repeat that. You're better off, America, if you enjoy free markets, if you enjoy capitalism, you enjoy anything like traditional American life, except American exceptionalism, we would be better off with not a single college graduate than we would be with every student in the country compelled into college, because it's just not college anymore.
Those are some words of wisdom. And even though we have all the progressives fighting for this free college, we don't have it happening yet. So in order to make the money, we need colleges and universities to just keep raising their tuition because it's what they're good at. So we do have the coronavirus not stopping colleges and universities from taking a nice slice of your own little pie if you want to come back to college next year. So they're going to raise tuition, as they tend to do. And we're going to take a look at just a couple of the schools because, there's just, you could have how many hundreds of examples of what they're doing this.
This is kind of a ballsy solution, right?
Yeah.
When everybody else buys, you sell. When everybody else, right? This is kind of they're trading on their name. You won't be surprised that you got Ivy League schools here, really swanky universities like Virginia and Stanford. But go ahead and give some of the details.
So we'll start with the University of Virginia. They're going to increase tuition and mandatory fees by 3.6%. So that's anywhere from $510 to $880 annually for just the in-state tuition, in-state students. If you're an out-of-state student, you're looking at up to $2,000 more you're going to be paying. But we have to look at the Ivy Leaguers, the Harvards, where their tuition and fees is going to be $49,653, which is a 4.02% increase. And that was $47,000. So you're going to be paying $50,000 annually now to go to Harvard to get what kind of an education, as we've talked about basically every week. We also have Yale, where their tuition room and board is going to increase by 3.9%, and they're even more expensive. They're going to go up to basically $75,000, $74,900. Tuition alone is $57,700, and their room board is over $17,000. I decided to take a look and see if I could find myself an apartment around Yale. Okay? They were swanky compared to any apartment I have ever lived in, and it would still only have been not even half the cost of that $17,200.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Wow.
And the funny thing about most of these universities is they all have huge endowments.
Absolutely.
If there were ever universities that could afford to back off on tuition for a couple of years to help struggling students, the Stanfords, the Virginias, the Yales, and the Harvards could do it, but they're not doing it, right?
Of course
and
not.
So this is a way of saying, look, and I mean, I suppose from a Gordon Gekko Wall Street perspective, this may be a smart move. What they're saying is while everybody else is struggling, for students, struggling for kids who can pay for what's going on here, we, by distancing ourselves, right, by reasserting our overinflated tuition and raising them, right, we are basically saying you get what you pay for. And so what's sad about that is what you're really doing is freezing out from the elite institutions people who otherwise might be able to make it on moxie and hard work. This is getting just way too expensive for those people.
Well, absolutely. And the thing is, let's take a look in a petri dish here at Harvard, because they have that, $40 billion endowment? And yet they're still taking federal money.
Almost $9 million.
Almost $9 million. And on top of that, they're going to raise your tuition to $50 grand. It'll be what?
50 grand.
50 grand, but 200,000. I'm looking at the end game here. And
that's just tuition,
just a 4 year. They're going to be there 5. So 250. You're going to have $250,000. You're going to pay Harvard just for your tuition and get what kind of an education? I go back to that. What kind of an education?
Here's the hypocrisy. It is universities and universities professors who are demanding inclusion, right? They are basically taking kids who don't belong. They're flooding the schools with kids who are getting into debt, telling kids that they need to come to college, kids whose academic and attitudinal aspects of their careers, not interested in this. They're wasting their time, they're falling into debt. They're lecturing the rest of us about inclusivity, how no one should have to pay for this, that there should be no tests, maybe no grades. We're seeing during the crisis here, cancel final exams, let kids in some instance pick their own grades.
Oh, why not?
But notice that this idea of inclusivity doesn't apply to the elite schools. They're the ones. Why aren't some of these schools that have the highest standards for kids getting in, why don't they compromise those standards? In the name of inclusion, shouldn't the University of Virginia and Stanford, they be the first ones because of the so-called quality of their education? Should they just throw their doors wide open to people who don't have a chance of learning anything, but let them in anyway? Notice how the things that the Ivy League schools lecture you about, they're the least people inclined to do it themselves. Inclusion for you, but not for me.
All right. Well, just so everyone's not thinking, well, I would never go to an Ivy League or any of those other bigger fancy schools like Stanford. Well, everything we know is bigger in Texas. So even in Texas, a lot of the universities down there are increasing. Texas Tech is increasing 2.6%. Baylor's going to have a 4% tuition increase. And Texas Christian University is going up 4.9%. So look at all
crazy.
these.
I have a niece that goes to Baylor, and she's racking up a lot of debt to be there. She actually loves it. But man, that's going to be a huge. And she told me once that a lot of her peers were telling her, because she was worried about it, don't worry, by the time we graduate, it'll be free, right? And so already the kids have figured out that they think anyway they're playing with other people's money.
They're just gonna, if nothing else, just keep taking classes over and over. Okay, well, I would like some real education, so let's get to that now. Not much introduction is really needed for today's guest, the one, the only William Shakespeare. He's the man, the myth, the bard, and is arguably, maybe not even arguably, he is the greatest playwright. He's an Englishman who lived in the latter 16th and early 17th century. He has confirmed 37 plays and 154 sonnets to his name, and one of those plays is The Tempest, which is believed to be one of the final that he wrote. They say 1610 to 1611 he finished it. He died in 1616. And some would argue that right now, in the world today, we're going through a tempest.
We are, and you said the greatest play. I think it's clear he's the greatest playwright ever, and he's probably the greatest poet ever. He's close to it. So a remarkable figure, one of those dead white males who the envious would like to get rid of, but he's just too damn good. And in one of my favorite plays is The Tempest. It's one of the last plays he wrote. And actually, we know that he played the lead role of Prospero. He didn't act. Shakespeare was an actor. We don't have a lot of evidence he acted in many plays, but we do know he played the title role, the main role in this play, Prospero, a Duke of Milan who's been shipwrecked on a desert island for a long time. And while he's been on this desert island, he has managed to learn how to control spirits. He's become kind of a mage or a magician. He has all of this ability to control the weather. He has otherworldly spirits that attend on him. And at the end of the play, he breaks his pen and he metaphorically casts his books into the water. And so it's a goodbye to art, basically. And it serves as Shakespeare's goodbye to not just the theater, but his commentary on how brief life is. And without being able to give you much more information about the play, I highly recommend it. I think it's here's a little teaser for you. I think The Tempest is the only perfect play Shakespeare wrote. There are perhaps greater plays, King Lear, which I think would qualify, but the only perfect play Shakespeare wrote was The Tempest. So hopefully that will tease you to read it. But there's a great passage as the old man, Prospero, is considering the fleetingness of life. And he's talking to what's going to be his new son-in-law, Ferdinand, and his daughter, Miranda, about how the theater is a metaphor for life. And he says, "Our revels now are ended. These are actors, as I foretold you. We're all spirits and are melted into air, into thin air. And like the baseless fabric of this vision, the cloud-capped towers, the gorgeous palaces, the solemn temples, the great globe itself, yea, all which it inherit, shall dissolve, and like this insubstantial pageant faded, leave not a rack behind. We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with a sleep." How beautiful is that, right? Look at the people in your lives as actors. Some come, some go. Shakespeare in earlier plays did the same thing, right? All the World's a Stage he wrote in As You Like It. But here at the end of his career, he only had a few more years to live. He warns you, right? Look upon the people that have come and gone, the people that played small parts in your life, and the people who played major roles. And consider how brief it is. Like when a play ends and the lights come up and you can see the stage props and you can see the makeup on their faces, when they break that fourth wall and you see them as actors, that's what life is. But don't despair, Shakespeare says. Throw it up one more time, Mike. Don't despair. Because when you see a beautiful play, or perhaps watch a beautiful movie, and you're moved by it, right? But it's also over so quickly. Consider this, he says, right? The life is like that, right? Just like that. The baseless fabric of what this play you just watched, these cloud-capped towers, the palaces, the temples, the great globe itself, which was a pun on his own theater, right? How what we do here in the Globe Theater and what happens in real life, it's all a play. All which you inherit shall dissolve. And your life, like this insubstantial pageant that we just put on for you, will go and leave not a rack behind. The truth of us all is we are such stuff as dreams are made on. We are more real in our dreams. It is perhaps our imagination which will supersede our death, the soul, right? We are such stuff as dreams are made on. And our little life is rounded with a sleep. But again, as with the actors and as with the spirit ministers like Ariel in The Tempest, you see that the play is really about resurrection, it's about renewal, and it's about forgiveness. And that's a really important lesson. So many lessons you can learn from the theater. And Shakespeare makes them over again about the fleeting nature of time and the roles we all play before we go off to the great unknown.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for this Wednesday. For those of you with kids, just a reminder that Freedom Project Media is releasing 2 daily animated education videos on our Facebook page. We highlight a new American president every day at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time and one of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence at 2 p.m. So gather the kids and do a little homeschooling with Freedom Project.
And that's right. Do a little homeschooling with Freedom Project. We're enrolling for the fall semester 2021 school year. We don't know what things are looking like. There are already, believe it or not, some colleges and some schools that are planning on not being open in the fall. Look, if public schools don't return, that's not a huge loss. Find alternative education. They're going to get a better education anywhere, and Freedom Project is one of those systems. Our online classical school is now enrolling. Request your free packet at freedomforschool.com. That's freedomforschool.com. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. And until next time, stay healthy, my friends.